Okay, guys, quick read aloud. Little polar bear and his husky pup. Lars, the little polar bear, lived at the North Pole, where there are no trees or flowers, just ice and snow. Lars didn't mind. He loved to go out for long walks across the ice, always wondering what he might find behind the snow hill. One day, Lars walked even farther than usual, and he was hungry. He lifted his nose and sniffed. There was a delicious smell in the air, but he didn't know what it was. The delicious smell came from an igloo. That meant there were people. Lars's father had warned him to stay away from people. They're dangerous, he always said, but the smell from the igloo was so tempting that Lars couldn't resist. He even crawled closer, keeping well away from the team of sled dogs who seemed to be sleeping. Suddenly he heard a growl. The huskies jumped and strained at their leashes. The leashes snapped, and the whole team came rushing after Lars. Lars was lucky. He had a head start. When the dogs saw they would never catch up with him, they lost interest, turned back. At last, Lars could stop and catch his breath. He crawled over an ice cave and went to sleep. He woke up and there was a strange noise. He couldn't understand what it was. It was almost a whimper. But Lars walked over to a deep crack in the ice and he peered down. There sat a little husky. Although the dogs had frightened him, he felt sorry for this little one. See the little puppy down there? He worked into the pile of snow, but soon it was back. And he worked hard, but as soon as he was on firm ground, that little puppy started to growl. "Hey, I just helped you," Lars said indignantly, and the puppy barked. How ungrateful, Lars thought. He turned away in disgust and then bounded off toward the sea. The little dog ran after him, and chunks of ice began to fall, and the puppy then was far behind. The puppy started to drift away and started to howl. "I would gladly help you, but I don't want to be growled at." The little dog looked embarrassed. "I won't growl," he said, "I promise." I hope this light's okay for you. I feel like it's too dark. Sorry, there's the little puppy. So Lars towed the puppy back to shore. "What is your name?" he asked. "Mine's Lars. I'm Flo. Will you take me back to the igloo? I want my mother and I'm hungry. I'll take you home tomorrow if it stops snowing, but we're going to have to wait here to wait out the storm." Then Lars caught some fish and offered it to Flo, who gobbled it up. "That wasn't as good as meat." "You'll have meat again soon," said Lars. He shoveled a snowplow, and they laid down to sleep behind it, sheltered from the wind and the ice. The next morning, Lars and Flo set off under a clear sky to find the igloo. But when they got there, the dogs had gone. The snow had covered their tracks. "I want my mother," wailed Flo, then began to howl even louder. This time Lars understood why. He tried to comfort the little dog. "We'll find her," he said. "Which way do you think they were heading?" "To the town by the sea. That's where lots of people live." "Oh, yes, I know it," Lars said. "Let's go." The polar bear and the puppy walked on and on. They didn't even stop when darkness fell, so they didn't see the hunters until it was almost too late. They had ducked behind some rocks. The hunters came closer and closer. Suddenly, Flo began to growl. "Shh," said Lars. "You'll give us away." But the impetuous puppy jumped up and started barking. "Ha, it's just a stray dog," said one of the hunters, laughing. He and his friends got back on their snowmobiles and drove away. "Phew, you did the right thing after all," said Lars, "but I don't think we should go any further tonight. We will find your mother tomorrow, Flo." In the morning, they walked to the sea. A pair of seals were basking on the shore. Flo charged at them, barking excitedly. "Stop, Flo! Leave them alone!" shouted Lars as the seals fled into the water. Suddenly, Flo stopped barking. "Look at this," he yapped. He found an old kayak. Kayaks belong to people, and people are dangerous. Then he sniffed it. "It's all right. Nobody's used this kayak in a long time. What a good find. Now we can travel twice as fast." Paddling a kayak is not as easy as it looks, especially when you're a polar bear and a husky. Lars felt very wobbly at first. "Never mind," Flo said. "I think we're nearly there. Tonight we'll have meat for supper. Hooray!" "Listen," said Lars. "You're not to run off after the meat. You must stay close to me." In the twilight, as the kayak slipped silently towards the town, they both began to feel nervous. "Don't make a sound," said Flo. And for once, Flo kept his mouth, tight. I thought Flo was a girl. But the moment they stepped ashore, Flo began to cry, "I smell food!" And Lars couldn't stop him. He was gone. What was Lars to do? He stood there and heard someone yell, "Stop, thief!" And Flo ran past him with a funny chain hanging from his mouth. Lars ran after them. When they were at a safe distance, Flo stopped and laid the funny chain at Lars's feet. "Wow, that smells good. Just wait till you taste it. It's not like fish at all." But the more Flo ate, the sadder he became. "Will I ever find my mother?" he said mournfully. Then he lifted his little head and gave out a desperate howl. Hold on 1 second, sorry. I apologize. That was Casey calling on her lunch break. Okay, sorry, back to the story. Then he lifted his little head and gave out a desperate howl. "There he goes again," thought Lars. What could he do to keep this reckless little creature quiet? Sorry, picture. The last Lars heard was a huge, excited group of barking. There was no time to run. Suddenly he was surrounded by dogs, but they didn't hurt him. One of them was Flo's mother. She heard her puppy howling, and they all came rushing. Flo told his mother how Lars had found him and how he had saved him. "Thank you, Lars. Now you must let us take you home." Two friends hopped on the end of the dog sled and were whisked away. "This is more fun than kayaking," said Lars happily. Lars' parents were amazed to see Lars jump off the dog sled, and even more amazed by the funny chain that Flo had laid at their feet. "Here's something that tastes much better than fish," he told them. Then he turned to Lars and said, "I want you to have my collar. It will help you remember me." The dog team barked farewell and sped away. As Flo's sled disappeared over the horizon, Lars put the collar down, raised his head and howled. How strange it was, and how sad, he thought, to have to say goodbye. After Lars was walking through the area, animals, saw him often with a smile on his face and a bright red collar around his neck. The end. So tell me, what did you think of the story? Where do you think it took place? And what lesson can we learn about creatures that are different and how they can get along? Just a couple quick questions, no big deal. Email them, text me, call me about them. I will send the questions again with my video, and I hope you're well. It was great to talk to everyone today, and expect another video maybe tomorrow or the next day. Take care, everybody.